Thank you for tuning in to the World Builder's Anvil, episode 208, Classic Character Archetypes. Today's episode, prophesiers, doomsayers, and soothsayers of doom.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Welcome back. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram. I'm kind of confused about the soothsayers of doom because wouldn't that make them doomsayers? But hey,
I would think
welcome to the World Builder's Anvil.
I would think so too, but that is how you wrote it in the email. So I just read what you wrote, and even though
that's because you're getting the first word of the next line, which is probably left in the subject line.
Oh, do you want to re-record it?
Nope. Because I already made a joke about it.
Okay. So it's not soothsayers of doom. It prophesizers, doomsayers, and soothsayers. And then doom, which comes later.
Yeah, because the subtitle for the show will be Doom. I am predicting 0 to doom inches of accumulation today.
I see. So he is Jeffrey W. Ingram, and bringer of the doom, I am Michael Miller.
Bringer of the doom. And the naysayer supreme, Michael Miller.
Doom, 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 doom. So, Jeff and I had this cool idea. I don't remember whose it was, if it was yours or mine.
This is actually your idea?
This was my idea.
You get one every 200 episodes.
Every 200, I come up with a good one. So, but not the idea of these three. These three were mine, but I was talking about the concept of doing a series about archetypal characters that we've seen in stories and movies and TV shows, things that feel familiar that you can absolutely steal from and throw into your world and kind of shift it, make it your own, but it'll feel familiar in an okay way where you're not really plagiarizing, you're just taking advantage of an archetype.
Well, and exactly. And these have pretty much sprung up I think largely from the Jungian archetypes, which he took from mythology, but they were stories, essentially characters that kept showing up in stories over and over again, stylized characters, and sort of the overarching themes. And I'm a big fan of taking archetypes and actually sort of having an overriding one, but with feelings of other ones kind of mixed in there, just to help make them a little bit more unique. But they're absolutely essential because the reason that Carl Jung found these archetypes is because they're things that are they're sort of built into the psyche of people at this point. I would assume across the world, definitely in the Western regions. And I actually was introduced to the idea. We talked about this a little bit in the Undercroft. I asked the question, what are people's favorite archetypes? And someone brought up there's also Terra archetypes, which is obviously true.
Say that slower. You said that.
Terra archetypes.
Terra.
And,
tarot.
Like tarot cards.
Tarot cards.
And
yeah.
And the point being, each card's supposed to resemble something, and if a person draws it, it's supposed to resemble them. But put the truthfulness of that aside, it's absolutely a system that you can pull from because they're very much connected to the Jungian archetypes. I think they're good places to pull in, to have characters to help propel stories forward. But it's very important to have these sort of archetype characters in there because if you make everything completely unique and never done before, people will struggle to get through the story because they're struggling to understand all of the details that go on. That's the reason why we have plot structures, and that's the reason why character archetypes are so important.
It's useful to have a bunch of characters that the reader can easily latch onto. And that doesn't mean latch onto like that's going to be a character that's going to be there for the entirety of the story, but a character that they can understand easily without, reading too deeply into things. It's great to have deep characters, but if every single one of them is crazy complicated, it might be a little, tiresome to read.
Yes, it's more like watching French art house movies rather than thrillers. And it's fine if that's what you're going for, but your audience size will be reflective.
Got to have your Sam Spades.
Most definitely.
But today, we're talking about people who can see the future.
Most definitely. And there are 3 types specifically that Michael brought up in a text that started this all off, because that's how normal humans communicate. It's via text. we try not to ever talk to each other. But
what's kind of funny is I sometimes revisit some of the either emails or texts that I send you, and I send you some bizarre things. And sometimes there was one recent, I don't even remember what it was, that I sent him, that I sent Jeff, and I was very upset that he didn't react to it, because it was one of the more bizarre things that I had come up with, and I'm like, I'm irritated that you didn't have any kind of reaction to that, because it was out of left. Like, in my own mind, I'm going, my God, where is this coming from? and Jeff had nothing for it.
Yeah, I'm a cruel man.
Yeah. So Jungian,
because I saw it coming.
So tarot,
which is actually kind of the key of this archetype, right? Is
I saw it. Oh man.
They actually have this tap into typically mystical forces that allows them to see the future. And that's the easy thing to say. Usually there's some question, something that makes it difficult to just go to them all of the time, because it's or a believability kind of issue. You need some kind of restraint on this archetype, so it doesn't overpower the story and become a simple sort of hand of God solution to everything. Oh wait, around that corner is the guy with the gun going to shoot you if you walk around. So walk the other way.
Yeah, go talk to the soothsayer, because they know exactly what's going to happen in tomorrow's battle, and they could just tell us, and that'll be that. Either there might be the soothsayer knows but always speaks incredibly cryptically, or doesn't speak in the same language, or only sees a small piece of the future, so it might be really out of context and not really.
Or wants to eat you.
Yeah, or wants to eat you. Sure, that could be a thing.
Yeah. And they're usually not the leads. I can't think of any fiction where there's a soothsayer, prophesier as the lead. There could definitely be, though. Michael has one, I can tell.
I can, sort of. If anyone has heard of the show Early Edition,
Nope.
or if you haven't, it's a fantastic show and it's totally worth watching. The basic gist is there's this guy, and he wins the lottery, so he doesn't have to worry about going to work or doing things. But this is what happens. Every single day, he receives tomorrow's paper. So he spends his time trying to help wherever he can. He reads the paper, and it's tomorrow's paper. And he tries to help with what he reads the stories, and it's like, oh, so-and-so is going to get murdered, or this person's going to have this thing, or there's going to be a tragedy, or blah, 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 blah. And that's the show. So he's not really a soothsayer, but kind of, because he has tomorrow's knowledge and he's acting upon it.
Okay, I'm now ashamed of myself. Because I just thought of a perfect example of where this is true. One of my favorite books, whose name I can't remember right now. I always call it A Crack in Time. I don't think that's the name of the book, though. It's from Philip K. Dick. Mm-hmm. And it's about a man who's very good at predicting. There's a war between Earth and Mars. He's very good about predicting where the Martians are going to attack. So he realizes his side are the bad guys. So they dump him into a 1950s town, and they alter his memory so he thinks he lives in a 1950s town, and does a word puzzle in a newspaper, which is called Find the Martians, and he gets a cash prize, which he actually uses to feed his family. And that sort of becomes his job. If you've seen the Truman Show, it is a very sanitized version of that story, because that's kind of the story where he starts to see these cracks through time and to realize that it's all fake.
It's a fake world built around him.
Built around this one man, but it was because he was a soothsayer. So I've just proven myself wrong, and Michael's proven me maybe wrong, because it's this ability to see the future. And it's traditionally coming from a mystical standpoint, either from the gods or maybe a goddess character itself who is telling the future. but it's very much about this ability to see the future. It's usually not the lead character. It's usually either a supporting character or maybe a third or four, spaces away from the characters.
So the first one up on our list is the prophesiers.
Mm-hmm.
The prophesiers share what is coming. Usually, in my mind, when I think of prophesiers, they have kind of a specific vision about the future. It might be an isolated version. It might be a twisted truth, but they usually have a specific, not a generic. Like they don't tend to generalize.
One thing.
Yeah, they don't tend to generalize. They tend to be pretty specific about what they see.
Yep. And for flavor, if it's a doomsaying, they by default become a doomsayer. Because that's really how doomsayers vary from either one of these, is just on the fact of it's a statement of doom that they're seeing coming.
Well, see, I was actually going to put doomsayer in a separate category, only because when I hear doomsayer, I think of more generic prophecy.
Beware of the Ides de March.
Right. I think of a more generic prophecy, and of course it's specific to doom as opposed to prophesizing. It could be a bountiful harvest they're prophesizing about, or the
not a doomsayer. But I'm saying
no, not a doomsayer.
If their specific thing becomes of doom, though, they become a doomsayer.
Oh yes,
because doomsayers, all they're prophesizing is doom.
Right.
And it's usually something specific, not always.
Yeah, I immediately go to honestly, it makes me think of Rorschach and holding up the sign that says the end is nigh. Like, that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. For me, I always think of Julius Caesar for doomsayers. That is the classic example. Beware of the Ides of March.
Beware the Ides of March.
And actually, his wife also in the Shakespeare play has a vision of doom as well too. So lots of doom.
Of course, in the classic stories like that, there were always some sort of mystical, future seer. The what was the three? Was it a Shakespeare story I'm thinking of? The three blind
seers or hags.
The hags, yeah, but they're seers.
That's Greek mythology.
Okay,
and it was probably in Shakespeare too, because that was from classic Greek mythology, and that's actually later on we get to fun flavors. Blind is a common one that comes up.
Yeah, very common.
Oftentimes, seers have some form of limitation. Prophesizers. It's always about the story. It's something specific about the story that drives the plot forward. They're usually a little bit more limited than the other seers because, like you said, it's this very specific vision of the future. And a lot of times, main characters who aren't prophetic in nature will have an empathetic version of this that goes on, where they can feel like those darn Russians are going to drop the bombs.
Yeah, and sometimes you have stories where the lead character is... You'll either have the lead character has a reason to go see the soothsayer or comes across the soothsayer in their path, or they actually know that soothsayer for some reason. Like they know that person, and that person tries to warn them about a danger in the ship travel they're about to do, or you got this big adventure and beware of this thing. And sometimes the hero dismisses it and it's like, bah, I'm the hero. Other times he's like a little cautious,
Or sometimes the story becomes trying to defeat the prophecy.
Yeah.
And the classic one is, and this one goes back to the ancient times, one of the oracles, the king of Sardinia was having a problem with the Persian king. And so he goes to the oracle of Delphi and asks for a reading on what happens if they were to go to war with Persia. And in this typical cryptic reading, supposedly the oracle sent back a note that says, like the knights or the warriors will ride out to battle and a great kingdom will fall. So he took this prophecy to mean that if we march out of this gate of our town, we will be victorious in our battle against the Persians. Of course, they lost, and a great kingdom fell, which was Sardinia, fell to the Persians. So sometimes the understandings are misinterpreted as well. So
and then you have the ones where they just lie. If you take a look at Frank Miller's interpretation of the 300, they go to the soothsayers, and the soothsayers are purchased. Their answer is bought out and influenced by gold, and they're told a different thing. And you can have a little corruption in your future telling there. Maybe it's not even the truth that's coming out.
Well, and that might be a different archetype based off of a fake archetype, even though that was supposedly a real archetype. But yeah, so the thing is, the prophesier itself goes out through all of these, and it kind of goes back to this traditional archetype, a Jungian archetype called the wise old person, and he called it the wise old man or the wise old woman. A lot of times in stories, women typically are the wise people who know the future. Men are typically in the here and now, traditionally in fiction.
Jeff's gonna hate me for mentioning it, but I'm immediately reminded of the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm of course referring to the book Good Omens.
Never heard of it. Who wrote that? Was it actually published, or was it?
It was a fanfic.
Fanfic.
Read it on the internet. Yeah.
Oh, one of those Twilight stories.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Actually, written by two people. Terry Pratchett and some nobody. Essentially,
I'm gonna laugh the day you discover he's a listener.
That will be awesome if you ever busted me out. So the idea is, and when I think of this, is typically someone eccentric, or it's like a wise mother, which sort of has a tendency of going back to sort of like, a mother goddess. A lot of times fertility is mixed in whenever there's a woman in this category. Like she's had 5,000 children. Maybe it's like Mother Earth herself.
5,000.
Leading back to the mystical.
I get you. I get you.
But back to the old goddesses. Mother Earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call it. Could be one. The crazy homeless person to me falls in here. The pigeon lady from Home Alone 2, obviously.
I think Rorschach would fall into that one when he's
Rorschach,
doing his homeless persona. Yeah.
The town drunk. Not always. A lot of times the town drunk is its trope on its own.
I was going to say, would you call the guy from Gremlins?
Yes.
Would you put him in this category?
Most definitely. 100% in this category.
All right. Well, I mean, yes, in the town drunk, but would you call him a prophesier?
Oh, yeah, because he sees exactly what's coming.
Okay.
And he's just one that's not believable, because that's one of the sometimes curses, especially if the town drunk, no one's going to believe them. And not all town drunks are prophesiers, or they might just get a lucky guess once in a while, but some are.
Even a broken clock, so to speak.
Yeah, because even a broken clock can be right twice a day. But sometimes they're the town drunk because they can see the future. But sometimes they're the town drunk, and that expands their mind enough to see the future. Or sometimes they're just right a couple times, and they just happen to be drunk.
Sometimes because they see the prophecies, they can't handle it, and that's why they turn to substance abuse. Which leads
that's a
to,
common trope in more modern societies.
Right, which leads to like a crazy soothsayer, which is like, well, can you really believe what they're saying? Because they're talking nonsense most of the time, but every now and then they say something that's exactly right and rings true in the moment, and you have that character who's listening to it and going, oh, that really lines up with this other thing that's going on that I can't really make sense of, but this sounds like a thing, and no one else believes it but me. Which is why I'm the main character.
and sometimes, these people are seen as oracle type of people. Other times they are looked upon as crazy people. who are dismissed. Like the eccentric elder. It could be your crazy uncle or your crazy aunt, but they're right. It's like they have this interconnection that even though you don't believe them, they happen to be right. And a lot of times, you're choosing on the effect because of how you want it to present in the story. So, it's like if you don't want them to believe the person, or you want, but if it's a story obviously about them trying to overcome a possible future, you want them to know what the future is. So you want them to believe it so that they try and stop it. And then if it happens, was it because they were trying to prevent it that caused it? And you can get to these crazy little mind warp things when you get to those kind of games.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg thing. Like, is it fate if I can affect it, or is there such thing as free will, or is it all predetermination?
Or if you're a fan of Suikoden, you know that there's everything is fate and you can't control anything. The next one is barely mentionable because it in fantasy it so rarely shows up. But the future or the person who can see that future is a magician or wizard.
I'm trying to think of a good example of this one.
Yeah.
Magician or wizard.
Magician or wizard that sees what's coming.
Well, Merlin,
yeah, okay. Gandalf, okay. Dumbledore, okay. Besides those three, I can't think of any.
Dumbledore did. I'm trying to think.
He most definitely
Gandalf,
did.
Yeah, Gandalf. Yeah. Yep.
That's actually that is actually also a Jungian archetype. Is called the magician. It's the wise old man who can use magic to see the future. Merlin being the quintessential one from days of yore, but all modern wizards, not all of them, but that follow the archetype. Wizards are the ones that see things coming. Now, Jeffrey Biles would kill them though.
Yeah, go grab Jeffrey Biles' book.
Yeah, and see how accurate that story is. The next one is a common one. Sorry, women, because this is pretty much I can't think of any male versions of these. I kind of threw one in there, but I think I was stretching. The crone, the witch, or the hag.
Yep.
So common. Typically 3, because that kind of goes back to ancient Greek mythology. Sometimes they're missing eyes. Sometimes
a lot of times they're blind. That is so common.
Blind or missing eyes,
it's
or
like they can see in one way, but they can't in another. If
I think in Greek mythology they had a shared eye, and so you had to steal the eye so they didn't eat you.
There was, I think in the first fable, his sister was a seer, but I seem to remember the story might have started with an older woman who was a seer, and again, blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ones that came to mind here was the cut wife from Penny Dreadful, which I keep getting that name wrong. I don't know why.
No, that's right.
That's right that time?
Yeah,
very good.
Penny Dreadful's right.
And an interesting show. I've seen the first season. I'm on the second season, but there's a person called a cut wife in there, and she's the sort of wise seer person. The crazed hermit that you go to who lives in the cave.
Hermit. I forgot that one.
Yeah, the guy who lives up in the cave that you have to do the journey to. Not the guru, but the guru would actually be the same thing.
I think the crazed hermit is the older, modified, sort of crazy version of what used to be the guru. And like now, usually you go.
We call them gurus.
Usually you go to the crazy hermit, and he'll make you do something. Like you don't get to see him very often, so he makes.
There's a price.
There's a price, yeah.
For everyone in this category, there's a price to pay, unless you can trick them out of it.
Oh, I like when there's that potential,
that element.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan.
The insane, the crazy guy who's wrapped up in this is a more modern version. They're wrapped up your Hannibal Lecter, so he can see what's going on with the serial killer because he just understands that so well. He was really this archetype in Silence of the Lambs. I can't speak after that, but in Silence of the Lambs, he was an oracle.
Yeah.
My favorite, which probably shouldn't be here, probably should be under the next section, is Cassandra.
Now, who is Cassandra?
Cassandra was a seer, supposedly, in ancient Greece, who annoyed the gods. Shock. I think it was Apollo. And
always upsetting the gods. That's how all those Greek stories start.
yeah, that's how they all start, is some upset god. And so she was cursed to see the future, but to have no one ever believe her. And this is sort of redone in many different ways, to where it's like, because someone's insane, no one believes them, or they just look weak and everyone doesn't believe in weakness, so they can't be believable. Or in Greek mythology, you're a woman, we have no respect for women.
You're actually reminding me of a cross between Crazed Hermit and the Insane.
The difference is Cassandra.
Well, the reason I'm quick aside.
Usually a beautiful woman.
Quick aside, it reminds me of Villains by Necessity, Bazo the Mad God, the Mad God.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of based on what you're describing of as Cassandra, until you got to beautiful woman part.
She is typically a beautiful woman, and that's usually one of the reasons why she's not believed. But it's something it's a trope that gets kind of reused in different ways, and it's not always a woman, but it goes back to this female Cassandra woman here. And then you have the generic sort of seers, prophets, and oracles.
Don't skip that one you have after Cassandra, because I got
the Crazed Preacher.
The Crazed Preacher is a great one, and you see that if you've ever watched the movie and now the television show The Mist. And I'm watching the TV show right now, and it's pretty good.
Okay, so they sort of remade that sort of.
They've made a series out of it, and it's really extrapolated, and it's not the movie. I'll just tell you that. It's not the movie.
It's not. It's based on the premise, but
yes. There's obviously crossover. There are characters that, from the movie, they've taken one character and made like 2 or 3 characters out of that one character.
Yeah.
They've changed characters' genders and ages and switched things around. It's good. It's a decent show. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and actually, if you watch Supergirl on CW, there's actually this character exists in the current season right now, and I won't get too much into that because it's the current season.
I still have not started Supergirl. I'm so behind.
I enjoy those little soap opera superhero shows on CW.
Me too. I have, but there's literally like 3 of them that I haven't watched yet. Like I'm all up to date on my Marvel ones. I'm not up to date on my DC ones.
Well, the Marvel ones, it was funny because up until Netflix got a hold of them, people would always say DC had better television and Marvel had better movies, but now DC's kind of suffering on both sides. Even though the stylized shows are very good on CW, I enjoy them.
I'm gonna half agree with that, because the Marvel shows just have a very different personality. The DC shows have a more comic booky feel. They feel more comic booky, and the Flash is one of my favorite shows. I think the Flash is outstanding. So because I love the Flash, you'd think I'd be caught up on Supergirl, because I know Supergirl has a sideways feel. It's the same sort of feel as the Flash, just kind of a different bent on it. And I also loved Arrow up until like season 4 or 5. Like I stopped at like season 4 or 5, so it kind of started really going off the rails for me at that point.
And I still watch it, but I've lost my love for Arrow.
Yeah, me too.
And I just watch it just because story-wise, it's like the Legends of Tomorrow I never really got into.
I'm watching Legends of Tomorrow, but slowly. Like that's got a... I like that show for different reasons.
And they're coming out with the Black Lightning, which I'll be checking out as well. But that comes out, I think, winter this year. As you're hearing this, it's probably already started. I don't know.
I think they're gonna mess that show up.
Probably.
I saw the trailer, and it looks good, and I want it to be as good as the trailer. I really do.
Because the trailer was good. Yep.
If they can maintain what they established in the trailer as a seasonal feel, then
I think they will. I think they will, because
so.
the idea. I think it's because of the success of Luke Cage. Sort of inspired it.
Yeah, and the upcoming.
So I think they'll try. Of course. Yep.
Yeah. Blue Cage is good, though.
I really enjoyed that one, even though I have to say, and it shocked me, but I thought The Punisher might be the best one that they made.
The Punisher is, in my opinion, The Punisher is the best one they made, because it's so
it was either that
reality
or Daredevil.
And
the first season.
Ooh, you know what? I might have to disagree with you. I think the first season of Jessica Jones was outstanding. Like, I would say that Jessica Jones is probably the most approachable show, followed by The Punisher. And the only reason I don't put The Punisher first is because The Punisher has some.
We'll shoot you.
Well, it has some really graphic and possibly unsettling violence to certain people. There is some really unsettling themes in Jessica Jones, but it's not it's not unwatchable. Whereas some people, there's 2 or 3 sequences in The Punisher that it's hard to watch because it's so violent.
I said ooh, and that means something. Yeah. Okay.
Back to the future.
So back to here. Back to the future.
See what I did there?
Michael for the win.
Michael for the win.
So seers, prophets, and oracles. These are your more traditional priest who can see the future. You go make a sacrifice for type of preachers. Some of my favorites that kind of come up in here is like the young oracle. And usually the story goes you have to go recover this young oracle from someone because the old oracle is about to die or has just died, and you need to go rescue the new oracle before the villainous sides eat them.
This sounds so familiar. Like, again, getting back to the fact that it's an archetype. Like, I have the vague remnants of an 80s story, like, lingering in the back of my head.
You are thinking of the Golden Child.
I am not. You know what comes to mind, but it's not right. It reminds me of the second Conan. It reminds me of the Dark Crystal. Neither one of these is accurate to what you're describing, but they're close.
They're close. But what was I just engaging in that had that in there? I don't know. There was something it was either a video game so there's a video game or movie that I just played that had this in there. So check that out.
So there was a young seer and you had to replace the old seer sort of thing?
Yeah. I think it was a video game. I just can't remember what I was playing.
Well, what have you been playing lately?
Was it Pillars of Eternity? It must have been Pillars of Eternity. No, it wasn't Pillars of Eternity. It was Wasteland? I don't know, but I know I just engaged in this. Maybe it was something I was watching.
I don't know, but whatever I did, that's the thing. Go get it.
Whatever I did, go get it, go watch it, go play it, whatever you have to do to it. But it was good. But I mean, this is one literally, it's like every time that there's a show, typically with some kind of mystical background, there'll be some point where there's a kid that needs to be recovered because of the new oracle. It was not Hercules. It was Jason. It was like a BBC retelling of Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty good. It was sort of campy in the flavor of like the BBC Robin Hood type of feel to it, sort of a campy retelling with some more deep moments.
Okay.
But they had that moment where the old oracle was killed, and then you had to go save the new oracle.
Save the oracle.
That's not what I'm thinking of. Whatever I was thinking of, they'll go watch or play that. Whatever. Just do everything and let me know what it was.
Do all of the things and then meet us up on the Undercroft and
then my favorite one here is the ignored expert, and that's someone who's in the space. It's like a young priest or maybe the pretty nun or something like that really has the skills. Maybe it's even a scientist in a more modern storytelling setting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard you.
They see the future.
The ignored expert.
Ignored.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean,
they have the expertise.
You could call this Jeff. Oh gosh, what is his last name? Jurassic Park. Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum in the first Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, at the beginning.
At the beginning. Yeah.
At the end, they believed him.
Well, of course. But at the end of every story, they believe him.
But it's the expert that no one believes. They have the credentials, but no one believes them. Actually, I have this archetype in my world, Eric the Bard, and it's because he's so pretty, and he can't grow facial hair at a time where beards are very important. This is the joke, but
so like now.
So like me.
So like the modern hipster world.
The modern hipster world, he would also not fit into. Yeah, it's the character who knows probably way more than they should, and no one believes them. It's the opposite of the magician.
Now you're describing me.
Well,
but I can grow,
partially.
But I can grow a beard.
Only half of that.
The better half.
And the lone voice I've written down here. I'm not sure why.
Well, I would interpret the lone voice as like the voice of reason when everybody is saying.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. That's it exactly. Thank you very much.
I figured.
Go ahead and explain this one.
Well, this would be where everything looks one way and everybody believes it's one way, but you have one person who sees it clearly for what's actually going on, and is the one that's saying the sky is falling. And everyone else...
And no one believes it until they're all crushed.
Yes. Well, actually, that's kind of... I got to take that back. When I say the one who says the sky is falling, I'm talking about the remake and animated Chicken Little, where it was an alien invasion, as opposed to the Chicken Little of the old fable, where when he was saying the sky was falling, he was not accurate. I'm saying he is the one person that says a crazy thing that nobody believes because they all see it the other way. And he's not the expert, he's just the one that sees it. So.
Yes. Now, this last one is one of my favorite areas, which I don't think it's used enough anymore.
No, definitely not. It should be used more.
But it's the mystical beast with the knowledge.
Yeah.
And traditionally, I think of the Sphinx here.
Perfect.
It could also be fairies, especially like you go back to like Celtic lore or whatever. There's always a price, and there's always like a possible bad consequence, sort of like the hags. Like the Sphinx, he asks you the riddle. If you get the riddle wrong, he eats you.
I think it should be talking cats.
Usually... like with fairies, it might be they want your children, and they will come and get them.
Yes, they will. Fairies cannot be trusted, not with your kids. And don't make a deal with them.
Yes, don't make a deal with the fairies. But I think it's one that doesn't get used enough anymore.
Don't tell them I said that.
Yeah, that's MICH.
No, don't. They know name magic. I always tell them my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
That's why I always loved. There was a mummy supplement where they got into ancient Egyptian name magic, and they talked about how Westerners really were screwed in this world because we all used our real names.
Right.
So like I said, it's Philip and John on the World Builder's Anvil.
Go to Jeff's house.
Now, and to sort of top this episode off, just some fun flavors that I was thinking of at this time, because hundreds of characters will flood through your mind when you think of archetypes, because it's not always a classic archetype, but it's like maybe it's flavor to another archetype, or it's the actual archetypes that you think about, even though they've been flavored. These things, it's like it's nearly correct or it's not quite correct. It's because they've been flavored. It's like either they've been blended with something else, or just the way they interact is unique. And some of the fun ones I can think of is the sage.
I love the sage.
It's the sagely person. So very common in this area. I like making the sage drunk because I like making everything drink. Eccentric or crazy of some form.
See, that one makes me definitely think of the Dark Crystal, the chick with the one eye.
You know what I think about with this one is the chick with the one eye is a good one there. She was an oracle.
Yeah, I was going to say she was an oracle. I seem to remember that being her name. I couldn't remember it.
To me, I think of old men that have sort of the bad guy voices from Scooby-Doo villains. And then a lot of times they're doomsayers. The cattle are being killed by the Martians.
Don't go to the old clock tower. You'll be sorry.
That's right. And they're not really the bad guy. They're the doomsayer.
Yeah, they're the doomsayer.
But they also then will strangely have the same voice as the bad guy once the bad guy gets unmasked at the end.
Mr. Like, Johnson!
I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you screwy kids.
And your dog.
And your dog, that's right.
It's always includes a dog.
And the irony is they could pull the mask off. It could be a beautiful woman. And it would be like, I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you and those screwy kids and that dog and the turtle.
Even as a child. Did you say turtle?
Yeah.
You and your turtle. You and your crime-fighting, mystery-solving turtle. We have to make this. You just created a thing. We have to make a crime-fighting, mystery-solving turtle now. And it can't be the Ninja Turtles.
That'd be a good episode. No.
Anyway, no, the thing, even as a child, I had a tough time suspending my disbelief when they would pull the mask off, and I use that in air quotes, because it's like, old Mr. Jenkins or old Mrs. Seymour, and their body is not the shape
Nowhere
at
matches.
all, the full costume that they're wearing. It's like...
Yes, they were like a giant Frankenstein.
Yeah.
You pull the mask off, and it's like this hunched over old person.
You wanted the insurance money from closing the old library, or the haunting the old hotel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
and now the next one is another favorite, downright dangerous. Just the act of interacting with them puts your life at risk. Whether you have to trick them, whether you have to solve the riddle, whether they're just a crazy person that wants to kill people, there's something that will be very dangerous in the actual act of interaction. And it's the person is dangerous, not the environment.
yeah, because all these things after Jeff had mentioned the fun flavor, it's literally flavor. These are like characteristics you can add to any of those things we put before. So if you want to take like a
And these are just ones that come to mind that I know of. Yeah.
if you wanted to take like the mystical beast and then make them downright dangerous, or take the crazy old preacher and make them eccentric or sagely or whatever. And we got a couple other ones here too. The next one you have is Too Sexy.
No, you missed blind.
I did. I jumped over it. I did. You know why?
You missed it.
I couldn't see it.
I
couldn't see it. I did. I jumped right over blind. But we mentioned blind like 4 times already.
Yeah, we did.
So
because it is that good of a fun flavor. So
it is a good flavor.
Go to Too Sexy.
So Too Sexy. I'm trying to think of a character that fits this. So like immediately, of course, I think of lower tech levels, going to see some sort of soothsayer or whatever, and it's like this incredibly hot female, and they are usually dangerous. They're usually, it's like a witch that she's very attractive and seductive, but you really do. Oh, actually, I got a great one. The character name's on the tip of my brain. It was a Sinbad. It was the animated Sinbad movie that Brad Pitt voiced Sinbad, and there was a god that he spoke with in the beginning, and she was a beautiful, sexy woman, but she was
Aphrodite?
Definitely no. It was a character I think that they made up for the movie.
Okay.
Like I don't remember. Discord. The god.
Oh, okay.
Either the name of the character was Discord, or she was the goddess of Discord.
Okay.
But she was like a soothsayer, and she was very sexy and attractive and seductive, but super dangerous. Like you did not want to make a deal with her, and she, was like, "You're gonna do this thing for me."
Or Medusa. Well, before.
Well, but even Medusa, there have been incarnations of Medusa that she was like alluring and sexy until she turned around.
Yeah, up until the point you saw her face.
Yeah. So.
And then the hair will go crazy.
And she was, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering my mythology correctly, she was beautiful, and then cursed by the gods because she was too vain.
Cursed by Aphrodite,
right?
Because Aphrodite was too vain.
Well, but wasn't it a case of her saying I'm prettier than Aphrodite, and that's what caused it?
I forget exactly. I think it was more Aphrodite was jealous of her.
Was it?
And I think it's
okay.
Oh yes. Because someone looked at her instead. And
I see. There's that vanity.
Yeah. Too Sexy could also be a way to play off so people don't believe them, or to help hide the things like they're too dangerous. It could be used in many different ways. I think of, and this was a reoccurring character back in the late 50s, early 60s, and it was a spinoff of Marilyn Monroe, and she'd done it a few times herself too, where she was the smartest person in the thing, but she was pretty, she sounded stupid, and no one ever believed her, but the stupid stuff was always true.
See, I like it when the character uses that to their advantage and they play it off.
Well, here's the argument.
Like Columbo.
Did they?
Well,
Columbo,
for me,
not too sexy, but the too stupid. Columbo.
Well, for me, like he is the sage.
Too sexy.
The sage. Well, of course. I mean, come on, Peter Falk.
Well, he always knew who the bad guy was. I think he was at least flavored with the sage.
Right. Right, he flavored with the sage.
The eccentric sage.
Yeah, exactly.
And too sexy.
Exactly. And too sexy, if you're a Peter Falk fan, yes, absolutely.
And too young is another one that gets used a lot. I think this one's actually a bit overused.
At this
they
point,
like to have right now it's really popular to have the really young, super smart, and it's funny, it's cute because you see like the little kid's mouth is moving and what they're saying, you're like, oh yes, that's so smart. But it's definitely one that is out there.
I mean, for me, what comes to mind there is just The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense. Oh God, there's another one that's going through my brain right now that you have to go see too.
What's that?
I can't. My brain is failing.
Is it a movie or a show or?
It's a. I believe it's a movie, and there's just this really young kid, and it's playing like a super powerful being.
Okay.
And like the voice doesn't match up with. It's like obviously like an adult voice that is being dubbed over the kid who's mouthing this stuff.
That's kind of cool. Is it newer? Like what else could you?
No,
what else is in your mind on it? Like, do you have a flavor? Do you have an actor? Do you have a storyline?
No.
You are not helpful today.
I'm failing big time. Okay, so what is our world building task? So I can stop failing.
Okay, so today's world building task is create a doomsayer. Now, Jeff wrote a doomsayer, but I'm gonna say it doesn't have to be a doomsayer. I'm gonna say soothsayer. I'm going to say throw out a soothsayer or some kind of future teller, prophesizer, or doomsayer. We both lean towards doomsayer because they're so much fun, and that could lead into apocalypse, and you can go revisit.
And then we can blow up your world again.
And you could revisit the apocalypse episodes. But, make it fit your world. Like, throw someone in there. You don't have to use them all the time, but, make one. Put one together.
If you're looking for some more of these classic psychological archetypes, there'll be a link to Wikipedia, or just go to Wikipedia, but there'll be a link in the show notes as well to some of these Jungian archetypes, not just the wise old man, but a whole bunch of common ones there. And trust me, this is the easiest stuff in the world to find. And I'll put one up for the tarot ones. I didn't spend much time looking at that, but you could use it very much in the same way. I think it's an interesting way to sort of give you a grounding for a character as well too. What's their archetype, and then you flesh out the details and you pull them away and make them your own from there.
This whole talk has got me thinking about replaying the first Fable. Oh man, I loved that game.
But now for the real world task is go through some of your old characters and say, do I have any that kind of fit into this? Like I didn't even think of Eric the Bard until we were doing this episode.
That's kind of surprising.
Well, I thought of the character just not as this.
I know,
but it's true. It's truly what he is.
Totally fits into this
because he does. He knows everything that you need to know to stop the bad stuff from happening. But no one will give this guy the time of the day, except for children.
The unfortunate truth is that Villains by Necessity is a very difficult book to get your hands on these days.
Mm-hmm.
And Bozo the Mad Godling is such a cool character, and I'm not really taking away from the book by sharing the character, but I want to share the character.
You just ruined the whole thing for me.
It's not going to ruin the whole thing. You've read the book. I'm pretty sure you may have borrowed it from me. Bozo
just ruined it for me.
Bozo the Mad Godling was the child of a god, and I think maybe a mortal. And because he was partial god, he needed to be given eternal powers, like godlike powers, but he was given the choice to choose it, or he insisted on choosing it. And what he insisted on was that he wanted to know everything. He wanted to know all things, including secrets that the gods had. He wanted to know it all. So the gods were like, okay, you can have that, because they knew that he was half mortal, that it would drive him insane. So they gave it to him. And then he was driven insane by the knowledge and decided, I cannot handle it, and I'm going to kill myself. So he wrapped a line of dragon's breath around his neck and dove off the edge of a live volcano. And the god says, no, the god said, that's too easy, and they granted him immortality. And now he hangs suspended, forever being slowly burned by a volcano, by his neck, a neck noose made of dragon's breath, screaming and howling like a madman, to be visited by different people because he knows everything, but he is completely insane.
Excellent.
It's a cool character.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Villains
All right.
Villains by Necessity by Eve Forward. Go check that out if
Villains
you
by Necessity.
can get your hands on it.
And remember, go check out your characters and go to the Facebook group, The Undercroft, facebook.com/groups/Undercroft, or I think our duel.com/Undercroft might work now, too.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
But it will take you to the Facebook page. And go ahead and share some of them with us and let us know a little bit about your characters. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.